Hey guys, thank you for tuning in. In this video we're going to talk about something which I reckon is probably one of the most important bits of any bike-based packing list, which is your bike repair kit. The tools you need to fix problems on the road. If you have a small problem, if you're up in the hills, if you're away from any bike shops, it can turn into a really big problem if you don't have the right tools. So this is what we have whittled down. We take it on any trip, whether it's a really long-term bike tour or if it's a short overnight backpacking trip, on-road, off-road, this is what we take. It's about 600 grams. It can fix pretty much any problem you're likely to encounter that you wouldn't need a full-blown workshop to fix. So we're going to take a look through, see what's in it. I'll put some product links in the bottom, so hopefully it can be a useful template if you're trying to build your own and help save any small headaches from turning into really big headaches with this little toolkit. Cool, let's take a look. Okay, right, so let's look at these things in a little bit more detail. First thing is an adjustable wrench. So on a bike you'll have lots of nuts and bolts which will probably need tightening as you go along, particularly if you're cycling off-road. Things rattle about, it loosens nuts and bolts. With this, you wouldn't want to take multiple different wrenches for each different size. So this, if you have an adjustable one, you can tick a lot of boxes just with one bit of kit. You want to make sure that the metal is strong enough so if you have any tough nuts and bolts, it's not going to kind of like bend and ruin the metal. So a nice strong one. I think it's worth getting one slightly stronger and compromising a bit of weight just so it lasts for longer. These cost about £5. You can pick them up from hardware shops or you can get them online. £5, probably about 100 grams. Very, very useful. On the bike you'll have lots of points where you need a Phillips or a flathead screwdriver, not just on the bike itself but maybe on the bike fittings, so things like pannier racks. You quite often need them to be thin and easily to twist at a distance. So this I found, which is a Stanley multi-head screwdriver. I think it's called like a screwdriver pen. It's got 4 attachments with 2 different sized Phillips and flathead screwdriver tops, and it ticks pretty much all boxes that you might need on bike trips, but it is very light, very convenient, very easy just to slide into your bag. Next thing is probably my favorite bit of kit is a Leatherman. It doesn't have to be a Leatherman, any penknife or multi-tool is good to have. Whole point is that you have loads of functions in one bit of durable kit that you can take with you. On the top of this, so this is a Leatherman Rebar. This costs about 50 quid, so a bit more expensive than the rest of it, but I think it's worth it. Comes with a 20-year warranty, I think. You've got a serrated knife, which I use for rope. Got a bottle opener for your beers, a Phillips screwdriver, and a saw, so if you're chopping wood or anything like that. On the other side you've got a flat knife, you've got a punch, 2 different screwdriver attachments and a file. At the top you've got pliers and a bolt cutter, which was good enough for cutting bike cables, but now blunted it a bit, but you can change those out, which is really useful. All in all, super useful bit of kit, whether it's bike trips or any kind of outdoor trips. You can tick loads of boxes with that. Next stop is for your bike chain. So whilst you're cycling you might need to change your chain. As it wears out you might snap your chain, you might have dodgy links which you need to change out, and this is a chain breaking tool. You don't have chains where you need to punch them out. With these we don't, we just have quick release chains. So this really small, weighs maybe 50 grams, very easy to get your chain on and off, and then also a little holder. You pinch this, hold the chain together so it's easier to pinch it out. That costs I think £4 from Amazon. Used it for the last 4 months. Sometimes when you switch to smaller gear, you know, when like minimizing the size, it's not as practical, but this is not the case. It's still works really nicely, even for quite stubborn quick links which are difficult to get off. In here we've got some valve heads and screws for Presta valve. and we've also got some spare quick links. I'll talk a bit about spares at the end of this. Along with the chain breaker, we've got a chain wear tool. This is a fat spanner one. You can get smaller ones, but this one, although it's a bit sizable, it's pretty lightweight. This will tell you when your chain is worn and when you need to change it, which is really, really useful, because on longer trips, if you keep cycling on a worn chain, you'll wear down your cassette. Chains are quick and easy and cheap to replace. Bike cassettes are not so quick and easy, and they're definitely not cheap, particularly if you've got a huge big bike packing kind of dinner plate sized rear cassette. Not only are they expensive, you're talking maybe like £100 for some, they're difficult to find, particularly if you're overseas. This costs again about £5, weighs maybe like 60-70 grams, nice and lightweight. Next step is a Allen key set. This you can use for, there are so many points on the bike which require Allen keys to tighten, fix, and not just on the bike but also on other bits of things like your pannier racks or other things you might be taking on the tour with you require Allen keys. This is from Decathlon, cost about £5, maybe 100 grams. It's got all the width attached, the Allen key widths you would need for bike trips. Also has a Phillips screwdriver head and a flathead screwdriver head. This, I think there's loads of things where you can spend heaps of money. You can buy Allen key sets for like 40-50 quid, but you really don't need to. This is like £5, does everything you need. I had this for maybe like close to a decade. It's been in water, it's been in the mud, it's been thrown about, and it's fine. You don't need to spend a lot of money on them as long as the metal is strong enough. This has literally got no chips at all. Decathlons, I do think, are very good value for money because they're often pretty cheap, but the quality normally is pretty good. This is again from Decathlon, is a tyre levers. They come in sets of 3. You don't really need 3. I find you can just get 2. You want to stick with plastic ones because metal ones will ruin your rims. And these ones again is from like a cheap repair kit. I think it may have come with this repair kit, all for about £5. So you've got the 2 tyre levers, you've got some glue, you've got some sandpaper to sand down your inner tube just to help smooth it over, and then you've got patches. If you are running tubeless tyres, you'll need a different type of patch kit with some sealant, but if you're running standard inner tubes, this does the job. Last thing is this is a Top Peak 20 multi-tool. One of the bits of kit where I have spent a little bit more money, that's £20. I got this because it's really, really small, and it covers all the things which I can't quite do from here. Mainly having a chain breaking tool, which if you want to shorten your chain to size, or if you have a bike chain without quick release, this chain breaker is what you need. Along with that, on this set you have Allen keys, you've got hex keys which I have not covered on other bits, and you also have spoke tools, so if you want to tighten your spokes. For the weight and size of this, it's worth the money to tick off those little bits that you might encounter and might need fixing on the road. Oh yeah, and don't forget a rag. Any old rag will do, but it's just so useful for muddy, dirty rides to keep your chain and gearing clean and running smoothly. Also helps to keep your hands clean too. I won't dive too much into spares because I think your bike spares really depends on the type of trip you're going on, how far away from civilization you're going to get, how often you're going to touch back in with civilization. We always take an inner tube regardless of the length of trip, even if it's just on a day cycle. If you get caught short, particularly if it's in bad weather, you don't want to be repairing an inner tube on the side of the road or up in the hills. When the rain's coming down, it's really hard and it's just a ball ache really. So we'll always take an inner tube with us. We'll switch it out whilst we're out, then we'll get back to the tent, then we will repair the old one. It saves a lot of time and headaches. We'll always take a pump. This is a slightly bigger pump. We will only take this on longer trips because yeah, I think just on longer trips you want a bit more practicality rather than just size. This one has a foot pedal, comes down, has a gauge at the top and a handle here, so it's almost as efficient as a standard foot bike pump. We will also always take a lube with us on longer, anything over a few days, or in the winter. If it's going to be wet, we'll take a wet lube. This is Finish Line. I think it's really good. This is just a Decathlon dry lube. Particularly in wet weather, always take a lube with us, because getting rusting change if you're leaving your bike out in camping spots and getting wet all night, yeah, this can help stop rusty chains. On top of that, for longer trips we would normally take a spare chain and we will alternate the chain. We'll also normally take some cables just for like gears, because that can quite often go, but that all depends on the length of trip. These are things we will take on every single trip. Will be a lube, an inner tube, a pump, and this repair kit. Right, so now I've gone through all of the bits of kit, I'll show you about putting it onto the bike. And what I think is the best way to do it is to store, not all of these things you're going to need all of the time, so I store everything besides the multi-tool and the Allen key set in this bag. Keeps it all together. You can get expensive tyre, like tool rolls. This I think easily replaced and is waterproof, and that's a really small little size. So I will keep this in my frame bag. Tools in here, inner tube, down there, and then these things for quick easy access, pop them in the feed bag along with some lube. There's loads of points on the when you're cycling where you just need a quick little fix, maybe need to tighten something, adjust something, and these are the two things which will normally do that. You don't want to be hunting through your bags when you're in the middle of nowhere trying to search for your whole toolkit, taking everything out. These I keep in the feed bag at the top. This will go in my frame bag at the bottom. Right, so that is pretty much the whole toolkit covered. I hope it's been helpful. I really do think that your bike toolkit is such an important bit of your packing list. It's worth whittling it down and getting the right thing. We found after years and years of different types of trips, this covers all the bases while still not being too heavy. If you use a slightly different setup, if you have other tools, let us know in the comments. And also wanted to say a huge thank you to everyone who's been tuning in, because we just crossed the 1,000 subscribers mark, which feels amazing. This was a slightly different style video. We will maybe start doing resources and bike tips if you think that would be helpful. So if you liked the video, let us know and we will do more bike resources. We hopefully, fingers crossed, have some exciting news to share with you next week, which is why Sarah is not here, because she is checking this thing out. It's not a baby, if that sounded like a baby. But yeah, love it if you subscribed if you're enjoying the content, and we can show you what we've been talking about. Cool. Catch you next week, and hopefully we'll fill you in on the big news.